When it's cold outside, the first instinct is often to buy something new. A thicker jacket, another sweater, warmer boots. It feels like the most obvious solution. But many people notice something frustrating. Even after adding more clothes, they're still cold. That's because warmth doesn't depend only on how much clothing you wear. It depends on how well your clothes work together. Heat can escape in quiet, invisible ways, through small gaps, moving air, and moisture trapped inside your layers. And if those problems aren't addressed, adding more fabric doesn't help much. Another common mistake is treating each piece of clothing separately. A jacket is supposed to be warm. A sweater is supposed to insulate. A scarf is just an accessory. But in reality, your winter outfit works as a system. If one part of that system fails, the whole thing becomes less effective. In this video, we'll look at practical ways to stay warmer without buying new clothes. Not by piling on more layers, but by fixing the small issues that cause heat loss in the first place. Once you understand how warmth actually works, you'll often find that the clothes you already own are much more capable than you thought. Stop letting heat escape. One of the biggest reasons people feel cold has very little to do with how warm their clothes are, and everything to do with where heat is escaping. Even a well-insulated outfit can fail if warm air is constantly leaking out. Heat naturally rises, which makes the neck area one of the most important places to protect. If warm air can escape upward, your body has to keep producing more heat just to maintain the same temperature. A loose collar, an open zipper, or a poorly fitted hood can quietly undo the warmth of an entire jacket. Wrists are another common weak point. Sleeves that don't close properly allow cold air in with every movement of your arms. At the same time, warm air escapes from inside, creating a steady exchange that makes you feel chilled even when the rest of your body is well covered. The bottom of your jacket or coat matters just as much. If cold air can enter from below, it moves upward, pushing warm air out as it goes. This chimney effect is especially noticeable in windy conditions, but it can happen even on calm days when you're walking. These heat leaks are easy to overlook because they don't feel dramatic on their own. But together, they create constant heat loss. Once you reduce these escape points by closing gaps and improving how your clothes fit, warmth increases immediately, often without adding a single extra layer. Block wind before adding layers. When people feel cold, they often reach for another sweater. But in many cases, the real problem isn't lack of insulation, it's wind. Moving air pulls heat away from your body far more efficiently than cold air alone. And no amount of extra layers will fully solve that if wind is still getting through. Wind works by constantly replacing the warm air your body has already heated with colder air from outside. This happens quietly, without you noticing a clear draft. Fabrics that allow even a small amount of airflow can drain warmth faster than your body can replace it. As a result, you feel cold despite wearing multiple layers. This is why blocking wind often makes a bigger difference than adding thickness. A thin outer layer that stops air movement can dramatically improve how warm you feel, even if everything underneath stays the same. Once air is kept still, your existing layers suddenly start working much more effectively. Wind doesn't only come from weather. Walking quickly, cycling, or even moving your arms creates airflow around your body. If your outer clothing doesn't control that movement, you're constantly cooling yourself down without realizing it. Before adding more layers, it helps to look at how air moves through your outfit. Closing zippers, overlapping layers properly, and making sure the outermost layer actually blocks airflow can increase warmth immediately. Often, this simple change does more than piling on extra clothing ever could. Fix moisture before you fix cold. Feeling cold isn't always caused by low temperature. Very often, it's caused by moisture. Even in winter, your body produces sweat whenever you walk, climb stairs, or wear too many layers. And once moisture appears, staying warm becomes much harder. Water removes heat much faster than air. When sweat builds up inside your clothing, it starts pulling warmth away from your body almost immediately. This is why many people feel warm at first, then suddenly cold, especially after they stop moving. The temperature hasn't changed, but the moisture inside their layers has. This problem gets worse when moisture can't escape. If your clothes trap sweat, it stays close to your skin and cools down as soon as your activity level drops. Heavy layers, non-breathable fabrics, or tightly packed clothing all make this effect stronger. Another common mistake is wearing materials that hold on to moisture. Once they get damp, they stay wet for a long time and continue drawing heat away. This creates a cycle where you feel cold from the inside, even though you're well protected from wind and cold air outside. Before adding more warmth, it helps to reduce moisture buildup. Slightly opening layers during movement, choosing inner layers that dry faster, and avoiding overheating in the first place can keep your clothes dry. And dry layers, even thin ones, are always warmer than damp, heavy ones. Wear fewer layers but smarter. When it's cold, layering feels like the safest strategy. If one layer is good, more must be better. But piling on clothing can actually make you colder if it prevents your outfit from working the way it should. Warmth depends on trapped air. Each layer is supposed to hold a thin pocket of still air that your body can warm. When too many layers are worn at once, especially tight or bulky ones, those air pockets get compressed. Instead of insulating, the layers press against each other and reduce the space where warm air can stay still. Excessive layering can also restrict movement and airflow. Clothes that feel stiff or heavy make it harder for moisture to escape, which increases dampness inside your outfit. The result is often the opposite of what you want. You feel warm for a short time, then uncomfortable and cold. Another issue is uneven insulation. Multiple layers may bunch up in some areas while leaving others less protected. This creates hot spots and cold spots, making your body constantly adjust instead of maintaining steady warmth. Smarter layering focuses on balance rather than quantity. A well-chosen base layer, one insulating layer, and an outer layer that controls wind often work better than several thick layers stacked together. Fewer layers that function properly allow air to stay still, moisture to escape, and your body temperature to remain more stable throughout the day. Adjust fit, not fabric. When clothes don't keep you warm, it's easy to blame the fabric. But very often the issue is fit. Even high-quality materials can fail if clothing is too tight, too loose, or poorly adjusted. Clothes that are too tight compress insulation and restrict air pockets that are essential for warmth. Tight sleeves, narrow shoulders, or snug waistlines reduce the space where warm air can stay still. As a result, heat escapes faster, and the clothing feels less effective than it should. On the other hand, clothes that are too loose create excessive air movement. Cold air circulates freely inside, pushing warm air out instead of trapping it. This is especially noticeable in windy conditions or during movement, when loose fabric acts like a bellows. Fit also affects how layers interact. If inner layers bunch up or shift inside a jacket, insulation becomes uneven. Some areas overheat, others stay cold, and moisture builds up where fabric rubs together. Small adjustments often make a noticeable difference. Tightening cuffs, adjusting hems, closing gaps around the neck, or choosing layers that sit smoothly together can dramatically improve warmth. These changes don't require new clothing, just a better fit. In many cases, improving how your clothes fit your body is far more effective than changing what they're made of. Once air stays where it should and stops moving unnecessarily, warmth becomes much easier to maintain. Turn your clothes into a warmth system. Staying warm isn't about individual pieces of clothing. It's about how everything works together. When you start thinking of your outfit as a system, small changes suddenly make a big difference. Each layer has a role. Inner layers manage moisture. Middle layers trap air. Outer layers control wind and airflow. When one of these roles is ignored, the entire system becomes less effective, no matter how good the other parts are. Many warmth problems come from imbalance. Too much insulation without wind protection. Too many layers without moisture control. Tight fits that compress air or loose fits that let it escape. Once these issues are corrected, your existing clothes often perform far better than expected. The goal isn't to add warmth, but to stop losing it. Blocking wind, sealing gaps, keeping layers dry, and allowing air to stay still all work together to maintain body heat. These adjustments don't require new purchases, just awareness of how heat behaves. When clothes are used as a system rather than as separate items, warmth becomes predictable and reliable. And once you understand that system, staying warm feels less like a constant struggle, and more like something you can control.